What did Hannah Arendt really mean by the banality of evil? Thomas White, Get Pocket. Can one do evil without being evil? This was the puzzling question that the philosopher Hannah Arendt grappled with when she reported for The New Yorker in 1961 on the war crimes trial of Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi operative responsible for organizing the transportation of millions of Jews and others to various concentration camps in support of the Nazis' final solution. Arendt found Eichmann an ordinary, rather blunt bureaucrat who, in her words, was neither perverted nor sadistic, but terrifyingly normal. He acted without any motive other than to diligently advance his career in the Nazi bureaucracy. Eichmann was not a moral monster, she concluded in her study of the case. Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report to the banality of evil, 1963. Instead, he performed evil deeds without evil intentions, a fact connected to his thoughtlessness, a disengagement from the reality of his evil acts. Eichmann never realized what he was doing due to an inability to think from the standpoint of somebody else. Lacking this particular cognitive ability, he committed crimes under circumstances that made it well nigh impossible for him to know or to feel that he was doing wrong. Arendt dubbed these collective characteristics of Eichmann the banality of evil. He wasn't inherently evil, but merely shallow and clueless, a joiner, in the words of one contemporary interpreter of Arendt's thesis. He was a man who drifted into a Nazi party in search of purpose and direction, not out of deeper ideological belief in Arendt's telling. Eichmann reminds us of the protagonist in Albert Camus' novel The Stranger, 1942, who randomly and casually kills a man, but then afterwards feels no remorse. There was no particular intention or obvious evil motive, and the deed just happened. This wasn't Arendt's first, somewhat superficial impression of Eichmann. Even 10 years after his trial in Israel, she wrote in 1971, I was struck by the manifest shallowness in the doer, i.e. Eichmann, which made it impossible to trace the uncontestable evil of his deeds to any deeper level of roots or motives. The deeds were monstrous, but the doer, at least the very effective one, now on trial, was quite ordinary, commonplace, and neither demonic nor monstrous. The banality of evil thesis was a flashpoint for controversy. To Arendt's critics, it seemed absolutely inexplicable that Eichmann could have played a key role in the Nazi genocide, yet to have no evil intentions. Gershom Scholem, a fellow philosopher and a theologian, wrote to Arendt in 1963 that her banality of evil thesis was merely a slogan that does not impress me, certainly as the product of a profound analysis. Mary Mackenzie, a novelist and a good friend of Arendt, voiced sheer incomprehension. It seems to me that what you are saying is that Eichmann lacks an inherent human quality, the capacity for thought, consciousness, conscious. But then, isn't he a monster simply? The controversy continues to the present day. The philosopher Alan Wolf, the political evil, who what it is and how to combat it, 2011, criticized Arendt for psychologizing, that is, avoiding the issue of evil as evil by defining it in the limited context of Eichmann's humdrum existence. Wolf argued that Arendt concentrated too much on who Eichmann was rather than what Eichmann did. For Arendt's critics, this focus on Eichmann's insignificant banal life seemed to be an absurd digression from his evil deeds. Other recent critics have documented Arendt's historical errors, which led her to miss a deeper evil in Eichmann, when she claimed that his evil was thought-defying, as Arendt wrote to the philosopher Karl Jaspers 3 years after the trial. The historian Deborah Listart, the defendant in David Arendt's Holocaust Denial Libel trial, decided in 2000, cites documentation released by the Israeli government for use in the legal proceeding. It proves Lipstadt asserts the Eichmann trial that Arendt's use of the term banal was flawed. The memo by Eichmann, released by Israel for use in my trial, reveals the degree to which Arendt was wrong about Eichmann. It is permitted with expressions of Nazi ideology. Eichmann accepted and espoused the idea of racial purity. Lipstadt further argues that Arendt failed to explain why Eichmann and his associates have attempted to destroy evidence of their war crimes, if he was indeed unaware of his wrongdoing. In Eichmann Before Jerusalem 2014, the German historian Benjamin Stangneth reveals another side to him besides the banal, seemingly a political man who was just acting like another ordinary career-oriented bureaucrat. Drawing on audio tapes of interviews with Eichmann by the Nazi journalist William Sasson, Stangneth shows Eichmann as a self-avowed, aggressive Nazi ideology strongly committed to Nazi beliefs, who showed no remorse or guilt for his role in the final solution, a radically evil Third Reich operative living inside the deceptively normal shell of a bland bureaucrat. Far from being thoughtless, Eichmann had plenty of thought of genocide carried out on behalf of his beloved Nazi party. On the tapes, Eichmann admitted to a sort of Jericho and Hyde dualism. I, the cautious bureaucrat, that was me, yes indeed. But this cautious bureaucrat was attended by a fanatical Nazi warrior, fighting for the freedom of my blood, which is my birthright. Arendt completely missed this radically evil side of Eichmann when she wrote 10 years after the trial that there was no sign in him of firm ideological convictions or of specific evil motives. They only underscores the banality and falsity of the banality of evil theses. And though Arendt never said that Eichmann was just an innocent cog in the Nazi bureaucracy, nor defended Eichmann as just following orders, both common misunderstandings of her findings on Eichmann. Her critics, including Wolff and Lipstadt, remain unsatisfied. So, what should we conclude about Arendt's claim that Eichmann, as well as other Germans, did evil without being evil? The question is a puzzle because Arendt missed an opportunity to investigate the larger meaning of Eichmann's political evil by not expanding her study of him into a broader study of evil's nature. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, 1951, published well before the Eichmann trial, Arendt said, "It is inherent in our entire Western philosophical tradition that we can't conceive of a radical evil." Instead of using the Eichmann case as a way forward to advance the tradition's understanding of radical evil, Arendt decided that his evil was banal, that is, thought-defying. By taking a narrow legalistic formalistic approach to the trial, she emphasized that there were no deeper issues at stake beyond the legal facts of Eichmann's guilt or innocence. Arendt automatically set herself up for failure as to the deeper why of Eichmann's evil. Yet, in her writings before Eichmann in Jerusalem, she actually took an opposite position. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, she argued that the evil of Nazis was absolute and inhuman, not shallow and incomprehensible, the metaphorical embodiment of hell itself. The reality of concentration camps resembles nothing so much as medieval pictures of hell. By declaring in her pre-Eichmann trial writings that absolute evil, exemplified by the Nazis, was driven by an audacious, monstrous intention to abolish humanity itself, Arendt was echoing the spirit of philosophers such as F.W.J. Schelling and Plato, who didn't shy away from investigating the deeper, more demonic aspects of evil. But this view changed when Arendt met Eichmann, whose bureaucratic emptiness suggested no such diabolical profundity, but only prosaic careerism and the inability to think. At that point, her earlier imaginative thinking about moral evil was distracted, and the banality of evil slogan was born. Moreover, Arendt died in 1975. Perhaps if she had lived longer, she could have clarified the puzzles surrounding the banality of evil theses, which still confound critics to this day. But this we shall never know. Thus, we are left with her original thesis as it stands. What is the basic confusion behind it? Arendt never did reconcile her impressions of Eichmann's bureaucratic banality with her earlier searing awareness of the evil, inhuman acts of the Third Reich. She saw the ordinary-looking functionary, but not the ideological evil warrior. How Eichmann's humdrum life could coexist with that other monstrous evil puzzled her. Nevertheless, Arendt never downplayed Eichmann's guilt, repeatedly described him as a war criminal, and concurred with his death sentence as handed by the Israeli court. So Eichmann's motives were, for her, obscure and thought-defying, his genocide acts were not. In the final analysis, Arendt did see the true horror of Eichmann's evil.